Have you ever wondered if that whitish coating on your tongue is due to something you're eating in your diet, maybe a sign that you have bad breath, or that there's something more serious lurking in your gut? What if I told you that your tongue could be sharing secrets with you about something going on under the surface that potentially points toward a problem with Candida overgrowth, and it is affecting your entire body? In this video, we're detailing telltale signs of Candida overgrowth starting right there in your mouth. If you struggle with this whitish coating on your tongue, so basically you look in the mirror and you stick your tongue out and you're like, and you're looking to see if you have this very distinct whitish coating. Some people will have it further to the back of their tongue, and others will notice that like most of the tongue is pretty white. And you get a gold star if you're able to actually get a flashlight, or maybe the flashlight from your phone, and take a look up into the inside of your cheeks and your mouth and maybe even the back of your throat, and you start to notice these whitish patches that exist within the throat. And that's really important because it can be a sign that despite no matter how much you brush your tongue, you brush your teeth, maybe you even try using a tongue scraper to remove this coating, you just do not notice any improvement. Or it just keeps coming back, especially if you eat a lot of sugar or you're out with friends at the bar or the pub having some drinks and you're just like, what the heck is going on? One of the things that you need to know is this isn't about having bad breath. A whitish coating on the tongue isn't due to what you ate. So it's not a sign necessarily that there's some sort of diet reaction happening within your body. That being said, and this is where it gets a little hairy, so stick with me here. Typically, a whitish coating is indicative of excess candida that is growing within your mouth. And that can be a problem. Obviously, that's why alcohol and sugary foods can impact it, so that one night out having a celebration for your friend's birthday party or being out at the bar one evening or hanging out with your friends was the culprit. It typically means that there's something else going on. So this is known as oral thrush, and that's usually how it's described, whether you're here in the United States or you're across the pond in the UK. They'll usually call it oral thrush. And what it is essentially a yeast infection that is inhabiting and hanging out all around the oral cavity, which is no fun. Now, this is also something that you might notice gets worse when you take oral antibiotics. A lot of my clients have really struggled when their gut microbiome is really messed up, especially if they've been exposed to a lot of antibiotics in the past. They'll start to notice that as a course of oral antibiotics goes on, might not be the first day, might not be the second day, but maybe you start getting into the third to somewhere into the fifth day, you'll start to notice that that whitish coating gets worse. And that's because we know that when you take antibiotics, it can shift the balance, so to speak, within your gut, allowing for more fungal organisms to really take off, right? Fungal organisms, by the way, are the same as Candida. Candida are fungus. This is essentially the way that Candida, which is an organism that we all have living within our gut microbiome, because it is a commensal organism, it is supposed to be there. But that organism is essentially being like, hey, hi, kind of presenting itself to you in this very outward fashion that we don't normally engage with. Normally we just like don't even know Candida is there. And then all of a sudden, when we get these sort of thrush situations, depending on the part or area of our body where we start to notice this essential like Candida or fungal overgrowth situation where it's presenting itself, that is something that you should definitely consider looking a little deeper into, because it's really pointing to a bigger issue inside your gut. As a clinical nutritionist, I find clients who have a whitish coating on their tongue to be really fascinating. In fact, we ask about that in our assessment because it is really important. It helps us identify an underlying problem that oftentimes you would have to do testing or look at other aspects of the case in order to figure that out. So it's a really easy no-brainer that if you have this, there is likely some level of fungal overgrowth or Candida overgrowth going on under the surface. So this mouth presentation of Candida being like, hey, is literally trying to tell you that there is an overgrowth, and it's not just in the mouth. That's what I'm trying to get across to everybody. It's so important. And that's one reason why before you do just like an oral rinse, we want to consider what this could mean on a grander scale. The gut microbiome isn't just this vast ecosystem that spans your entire colon. If anything, there are various microbiomes in different parts of our body. And I would argue, after working with clients in this field since 2017, that the gut microbiome is actually more extensive than you would think. And here's what I mean by that. There are microbiomes that impact your gut that are considered gateway microbiomes. So the sinuses and the nasal passages, for one, is a gateway microbiome. Your mouth is also a gateway microbiome. Those impact everything else further down. There actually is a microbiome, though it's small, in your stomach, and there's definitely a microbiome in your small intestine. And in fact, the small intestine is where the majority of fungal organisms, including Candida albicans, live. That's really the place where they like to hang out. So when they begin to overgrow and spread wider than that small intestine, that's where we start to see significant issues. So that's why I've talked about stool testing here. When you see fungal organisms show up on a stool test, that's not normal. You shouldn't see anything at all. And that can also explain why sometimes we can have fungal overgrowth, but it not show up on a stool test. But when it shows up in your mouth, when it is very, very clear and obvious to you that there is some sort of problem, that right there is all the confirmation you need. You don't need to go doing more and more testing to figure out, do I have this? Is this a possible sign? It is a sign. It is a ding, 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 ring the bell. You have this problem. Now, that doesn't mean that you've figured it all out, because sometimes we can have multiple problems. But I do think that it's worthwhile to consider that an imbalance within the gut microbiome is allowing for Candida to spread, to show itself, to, wave hello, and cause a lot of these uncomfortable hidden inflammatory issues that can drive all sorts of symptoms throughout your body, not just throughout your GI tract and having gut issues, but also it moves out to different areas of the skin, causing issues like eczema, driving psoriasis, all sorts of things. It's really a sign of deeper issues, because Candida in and of itself not only produces toxins that have to be processed by your liver, but it also produces alcohol. So the worse the Candida overgrowth within the GI tract, the more natural alcohol production will occur. And that also is really hard on your liver. So you might feel like you have brain fog. You might have like a plate of pasta. This happened to me a long time ago, and this was one of the most significant moments in my own health journey where I realized something was distinctly wrong. I had had a plate of pasta at an Italian restaurant, and I literally felt drunk. Like so drunk, like I must have drank 5 glasses of wine, but I had no alcohol. And what was actually happening was that was a sign of internal Candida overgrowth. I didn't necessarily have this full-on thrush situation, but I definitely had a more whitish coating in the back of my tongue. But I was having these experiences where I felt like I was intoxicated, even though I had not consumed anything other than water, and it wasn't like something else had been done to my glass. I was out to dinner with my family. So it's really worthwhile, if you're starting to notice a whole cluster of issues that impact not only your ability to think and function, to have energy, to have healthy bowel movements 1 to 3 times a day and not be constipated if you're really struggling with bloating and you generally just don't feel well. And then all of a sudden your tongue starts to really look more white, or you were prescribed antibiotics and this starts to happen, it is worthwhile to dig into this and go see your GP. So what are a few things that you could actually do if this whitish coating that you have is actually thrush? The first thing that I would do is recommend that you talk to your doctor about getting some type of antifungal medication. That can be really helpful and it can oftentimes act pretty quickly. So that is a really great place to start. I would also make sure to support your digestive process with digestive enzymes. That is really important because you want to make sure that you're breaking food down so that what you eat actually gets absorbed and not just simply pooped out and wasted, essentially. The other thing that you can do is adding in a little bit of a binder. And one really great binder that I love to use with clients, especially those who have issues with Candida overgrowth, are immunoglobulins. And I've talked about those before. They can be very gentle. They can be taken with food. They can be taken with medications and even with other supplements. So they're not like a traditional binder that oftentimes will bind to other things and you can't take it with food or medications or supplements. Instead, immunoglobulins, you can. So I do find that they can be helpful. And then if you're going to use herbs as part of your protocol, I would highly recommend that you get started on supporting phase 2 liver detox, because when you go to add herbs, those organisms, they begin to die and they then release more toxins, and that tends to overload your liver. So if you're the type of person who's sensitive to supplements, and especially you've struggled getting through any type of like gut protocols, because as soon as you start to kill things off, your body's like, nope, can't do this, can't handle it. That's one of the main reasons why, is because your poor phase 2 liver detox is really struggling. And I've talked about this in other episodes, which I'll link in the show notes so you can check that out. But I do think that adding some type of comprehensive liver support that is not just herbs, I tend to find with clients that the herbs oftentimes aren't as helpful. You literally need the nutrients, which is available in like RP2 Detox Balance. It's so important to get that and glycine and some B6 into your system to help support that whole pathway. So that if you decide to go the herbal route, you can then look at other herbs that are more antifungal, things like monolaurin, paldarco, and even different combination products. Or perhaps you get guidance on that from somebody like myself who works within the scope of practice to help you figure out what's the most effective way forward dealing with the full picture, instead of just trying to deal with Candida and playing whack-a-mole in addressing one problem that ultimately can sometimes mean that other issues get left to the wayside and still hang out, and why you're just like not really feeling better after doing these types of like herbal protocols focused on just the one thing. And so of course, finding a practitioner that is knowledgeable on this is really important. And we work with a whole variety of clients who are dealing with gut and chronic skin issues in my clinical practice. We work with them virtually all over the world. So if you're looking for help, I would highly recommend checking out the resources below this video. And so I would love to know what your experience has been dealing with this whitish coating on your tongue. Did you even know that it was Candida? Did you realize what it was potentially pointing to? And have you ever gotten treatment? And what has your experience been with that? Leave your experience and share your thoughts below this video, and let me know what other topics you would love for me to talk about that is in this sphere. I love to talk about Candida and share everything that I know with you, but I want to make sure that I do it in such a way that it makes sense and it is really, really helpful, because it can get complex. And I'll also make sure to put all the links below so that way you can get access to the references and other episodes that I've already done on this topic if this is something that really, truly interests you. You can find the full transcript over at skinterrupt.com/397. If you're here watching these videos, I'm willing to bet that you've been wondering what the heck is driving your skin nuts. And to help you with that, I've actually got an amazing free resource that has been downloaded by thousands of community members who really need help getting started with that root cause focused process. So if you head on over to stopmyrashesnow.com, you can download this guide and get started based around your specific skin diagnoses to figure out what your root causes are, as well as the action steps that are based in integrative and alternative strategies. Remember to hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and would love for me to make more content just like this, and then subscribe to my channel so you never miss any of our weekly videos. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, you need to tune in to this video next. Then make sure to hit the subscribe button so you get notified as soon as a new episode drops. I'm excited to see you there and dive deeper with you on your skin healing journey.